Welcome to Global Perspectives. I'm David Dumke with Katie Coronado. Today we welcome a luminary in the field of diversity and inclusion, Dr. Peggy McIntosh of Wellesley College's Centers for Women. She joins us at a time when our nation seemingly debates what it means to be an American in the 21st century. Dr. McIntosh, welcome to Global Perspectives.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Dr. McIntosh. We'd really like to open by asking what you define as diversity and inclusion, and then go into in depth what the work you've done in this field.
Well, for me, diversity means variety. And inclusion means bringing together, in human sense, everybody, so that everybody feels they belong.
Okay, and when you say everybody feels they belong, what have you done to influence the research in this area, and specifically when it comes to the subject of white privilege?
I've done a great deal for many years on making the curriculum include more people racially, gender-wise, geographically, religiously. But my work on white privilege centers around an autobiographical list of ways in which I discovered I had unearned advantage by being born white in a system that favors whites. And that is not a system that includes everybody equally.
Did you get a lot when you wrote this paper that has been so influential in the field of diversity and inclusion in 1988? Did you get resistance at the time immediately? And has that resistance grown or diminished in the years since?
I didn't get resistance immediately because it was seen as a new angle of vision, not about being discriminated against, but about being comparatively free from discrimination. And so psychologists found it useful as a study in comparative peace of mind. And then sociologists found that it was useful in study about group experience. My work is more about group power than individuals, but my paper is, the one you're talking about, is very individualistic. It's about my experience by contrast with African American women in my building and my line of work in the early 1980s. I didn't get a lot of pushback then, but gradually anger from people who had class privilege, who had not got class privilege. And some of them rather carelessly read my list of advantages as speaking for all whites, whereas I was only speaking for myself in my individual experience and in my line of work and in my place of living. And that, somehow or other, that resistance to the idea of white privilege is, until recently, it has been overridden by the usefulness of this analysis to many, many white people who tell me, I never thought of any of this before. And of course, I get thanked by people of color who say, in effect, you showed me I'm not crazy. I knew there were aspects of the culture that were working against me, but it wasn't outright racism. And you gave me names. You gave me names.
Well, you've worked obviously a lot in trying to promote diversity and inclusion. But before we get into some of your current work, I want to ask a question about the history of some of this privilege. Where does it come from, and where is it rooted?
Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows why white Europeans felt entitled to colonize the rest of the world, where they got the technology, the know-how, the power on land and on sea to take over other countries. We don't know where it came from. Some people think, well, whites are innately superior. I don't know. Right now, in present-day America, I don't think whites are innately, that is, from birth, superior to darker-skinned people and people of other ethnic groups, especially Latin America and all of South Asia and East Asia. They don't know. Jared Diamond in his book Guns and Steel, maybe you can help me with the Jared Diamond title.
Right.
He speculates on this. He thinks it maybe has to do with the climate of Europe, the physical weather climate of Europe, enabling it to survive guns, germs, and steel.
That's it, yes.
That's it. But nobody knows.
Now, what do you say to people who may be watching us now who say, well, I'm white and I'm not privileged? We're talking about your research, the academic perspective, but from your experience, your point of view. So what do you say to that person who says, I'm white, but I don't feel privileged, so I don't understand. This just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, there are several things to say, but what I most often say is to the cops, you're white. And that's a big, important factor in feeling safe and protected. You may not have had class privilege, and that's where that question usually comes from, a person who hasn't had class privilege. And I say, I understand, you may not have class privilege. The system of class privilege is pretty ferocious. The rich and the poor, the huge gap. You may be a very poor white person, or maybe a white person who was discriminated against in your community for being Catholic or Jewish, or coming from first or second generation immigrant parents. Nevertheless, at least in my state, Massachusetts, the cops will see you as white. That's white privilege. Being spared a fair amount of suspicion, a fair amount of following, a fair amount of harassment on the part of authorities because they think maybe you're not reliable, not a good citizen. Most whites are spared deep persecution. Gender-wise, a white woman is safer. A woman who looks white is safer than a woman of color. I don't argue that point a great deal because I can imagine the frustration of those who say, well, I've got all those privileges according to what you say. That means they haven't really read that it's an autobiographical paper. But I can imagine what they mean by, nobody took care of me. I didn't get anything. I've worked for every damn thing I've ever got. My family worked hard. We haven't got any advantages. I can understand that indignation. So people who use the phrase white privilege should be aware that not all whites have my list of advantage.
So you're talking about the indignation and responding to a concept that was individual to you. So how did you get into this particular field, and when did it dawn on you as an individual, some of the things you've written and spoken about?
It dawned on me because I noticed male privilege, and it was in an academic setting. It was male privilege in the curriculum. When I went to college, every syllabus, every reading list was full of works by men. I didn't know that it should be any different. But when I got into my 50s and 60s, I began to realize, even at a girls' school, I had been teaching an all-male curriculum and not noticing that. not asking, what might that be doing to the minds of these young women, that everybody who counts is male in all the literature on teaching. And it came to me that I was white in this way. I was leading a seminar on bringing women into the curriculum, finally, I had noticed, at Wellesley College, and the people attending the seminar were men and women, and the men were wonderful. But when it came to the question the women began to raise, why can't we put these materials on women into the first year courses? The men, without knowing it, said things that were oppressive. And one very nice man, all these men were very nice, who came to the seminars once a month, 5 hours with a big dinner. But one of them said, well, we can't put women in at the beginning of the college courses. And the way he put it was this way: when you're trying to lay the foundation blocks for knowledge in those introductory courses, you can't put in soft stuff. You can't put in soft stuff. Now, he had been reading a whole lot of hardback and softback books by and about women. He was a nice man, but he sort of tipped his hand and showed us that he thought everything we'd been studying was still somewhat soft. And 2 years later, I found in my notes another comment from a man. When the women in the seminar, now this was a brand new group of women from 22 colleges and universities around New England, and the women raised the question, can't we put the materials on women in at the freshman level? And a very nice man explaining to us said, you can't do that. See, the first year, the students are choosing their major, and their major is their discipline. And if you want a student to think in a disciplined way, you can't put in extras. And none of us women in the seminar said anything. We had nothing to say. We had not been taught to say anything to that idea that women are extra. But it gradually dawned on me, well, the man who said that, and all the men in the seminar, and all the men and women in the whole world were born of a woman. And what has happened to his mind that makes him say, you can't put in extras, meaning women, and what has happened to our minds, the rest of the seminar members, who said nothing? And then I decided, okay, it has nothing to do with whether these are nice men. They are nice men and brave to take a seminar on bringing women into the curriculum. They are nice men and they are brave men. They are our friends. But something in their head has told them, and they're very good students of it, that this is a list of truths. Men have knowledge. Men make more knowledge. Men publish and profess knowledge as professors. And men run the most famous research universities and the big, best-known college presses. And they have drunk in the idea that men are knowers, and even that knowledge itself is male. And it's not their fault. I was taught exactly the same, and I drunk it in too. I internalized it. We all internalized it. The world of knowledge belonged to men.
When you bring this out, this concept out, though, is there denial, especially among men who have been very sympathetic and nice, as you phrase it? They've been your friends, but no one likes to be called, that this is an oppressor, for example. So is there a denial in this too?
The men were very good about it. They knew that scholarship in general claims to be about expanding the parameters of known truth. And they weren't resentful about discovering that they had left out half the population. However, it required a fair amount of guts to take it in and believe it and act on it, because professors are taught, we know, and this was, well, we know something about half the world's population and not about the other half. And so it takes ego strength to survive that and then put women into the curriculum. I wrote a paper called "Warning: The New Scholarship on Women May Be Hazardous to Your Ego," because we thought we were individually pretty excellent, and now we find we were collectively clueless. We professors, and it's for the women professors. It was hazardous to our ego as well, to see how much we left out. And then when it comes to the study of religion, we realized we'd left out all the Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Confucianism. We had left out, and all of Islam. We realized we had left out almost all of religion. So it does require a sort of backbone to survive the new scholarship that is more inclusive and learn from it.
And speaking of new scholarship, some of the information that we know, you wrote that in the 80s, correct? And you called it a list of unearned advantages. Can we talk about some of those things? I circled a few during your presentation, but which are the ones that stand out for you?
Okay, well, but first I want to say that noticing male privilege and working with men as they recognized they'd left women out, I came across the second element, which led to the paper you're talking about. The second element is that I had internalized all those things about how men are knowers and knowledge is male. But black women in the Boston area had begun to say that we white women were oppressive to work with. We white women were oppressive to work with. And then I began to realize, the people we studied were not only male, but they were white males. And we had taken in that whiteness as normalcy, that the normal human being was white. And was that oppressive for them? And I had to say yes. And was I in possession of a conviction that whiteness was normal and everybody else was abnormal? All darker skinned people were abnormal. Did that make me oppressive to work with? And I hated these questions in this period of my life because I was struggling to preserve my self-image while understanding that it had been quite an exclusive frame of mind, a very white frame of mind. And then I realized the knowledge system is about white people making knowledge. White people have knowledge, white people make more knowledge, white people publish and profess knowledge, white people run the big university presses and the best known research universities, and we have taken in, and I had to, of course, knowledge is white, and whites are knowers. And it takes a whole lot of ego strength to get over the idea that in the world, the white people are the ones who know. So then I can answer your question.
As explaining that, at the same time that we see United States, which has become more diverse. I'm not saying more inclusive, but more diverse clearly. And that includes on university campuses. It includes even government to a certain extent and down the line. Do you see progress in the last 3 decades?
I do. Look look at this university. Why diversifying the things it teaches, the people who do the teaching, the whole idea of who's human. This university is impressive in having become more inclusive. And at Wellesley College, where I'm located, more than half of the students identify as people of color, more than half. And at Harvard, where I was as an undergraduate, the college was called Radcliffe. It's now slightly more female than male. Gender-wise, there's been this expansion of respect.
So is this, as we see this expansion of respect, how are we turning that into diversity into a strength in this country? Or has this become an issue that we're debating too much and some people, again, are resisting some of this?
Yes, there's quite a division on whether that diversity, the changes toward greater diversity and inclusiveness, have been good for the country or not. So you have strong messages from the federal government that that's not been a good development. And then strong messages from the liberal arts colleges and also the towns running school systems that the diversity, the time has come, and we need to acknowledge that the place is bigger than we were taught when we were children. The human space in the United States is bigger and should include everybody, but the debate is quite strong.
I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier. You said that using your privilege could help or impact your spirituality. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, but why don't you read a few of the examples which you promised your audience?
Do you want me to read some of your examples?
Yeah,
Okay.
a few that you would like.
A few that I liked. There's so many that are impactful, but let's see. I can be sure that my children will be given curricular materials that testify to the existence of their race. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah. There won't be any classes they're asked to take which would leave out white people.
I can be pretty sure that my neighbors in such a location will be neutral or pleasant to me.
That's when I choose to live in a different part of town. When I move in, I'm not going to be scrutinized and assumed to be perhaps a thief or a person who's got unruly children on drugs.
I can go home from most meetings of organizations I belong to feeling somewhat tied in rather than isolated, out of place, outnumbered, unheard, held at a distance, or feared.
Yes, on many campuses, kids join organizations and find they're not really welcomed. They're seen as marginal, and that list of verbs applies. They don't belong.
And this list is long, so we won't go into all of them, but thank you for going into those details. And that is a list that many academics and people in general are using still today, so it's important to note.
Yes, unfortunately, the list is still pretty up to date, even though I wrote it 30 years ago.
Let me ask you, because we only have a couple minutes left.
Wow.
You've been involved with so many projects, but the SEED project is one of them, where you're talking about you are helping teachers and community leaders create seminars, year-long conversations that are peer-led.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you, how successful have these been? And then, just as you're saying, these are learned, I'm misspeaking.
Unearned advantages.
Unearned advantages. Can you train yourself to see your surroundings differently?
Yes, you can. And the main mode of SEED seminar discussions is what I call serial testimony, which is you testify only about your own experience, not about your opinions. There's a big difference between your experience and your opinions. We favor experience. And if you go around a table of 10, 15 people, which is now tremendously popular, they're preparing for 150 new SEED seminars around the country each summer. If you go around and listen to what others are saying about their experience, and if it's timed, 1 minute, and no interruptions, And if you may not piggyback on what anybody else says, you have to speak for yourself and your experience. The learning is huge. The learning is enormous. You get to know the lives of others without having to argue or be defensive. You can just sit there and take it in. It's a lesson in the breadth of the humanity in the room.
We have less than a minute left. Can you briefly, in 10 seconds, tell us how using your privilege can help your soul in 10 seconds?
Anybody who's done a lot of volunteering will be able to answer some of this. But if you have, because of any kind of privilege, money, time, administrative ability, empathy, you can make of your own life something that is useful. I used to want to be popular. I found it was better to be useful. Being more useful improves your soul.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peggy McIntosh, and thank you for watching. We look forward to you joining us for another episode of Global Perspectives soon.